Well, experiment failed. If anything, from that upper angle in the last video, I look fatter. I think showing more of the torso gave it away. Oh well. So, as promised, here's a video about my experiences as a high schooler working in a movie theater. And there's not going to be really any form to this, except for I will end with my most interesting story. I worked at the movie theater, and from 2001, the first movie I ever remember seeing played there while I was working there was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And I'm pretty sure that was 2001 or 2000. Till around when I graduated, 2002. This was in Frankfort, Kentucky. It used to be called, like I said, Chackers. There's a company, they're gone now. It's somebody else. It's like the Franklin Square Cinema, which it also, I think, was called that at the time. But from the little bit of research I've done, it's still a 6-screen theater. They've changed the carpet, and it's digital projection, of course, now. But working in that environment with people my age was a blast. We got to stay up super late because the movies played late, and we'd go home all hours of the night, hang out all weekend. It was a lot of fun. Some of the memorable experiences that happened is we used to have sneak previews. Now, before movies came out on Friday, first show was in the afternoon, matinee, that's it, right? Well, nowadays they do a Thursday night midnight screening. Well, we used to do that, but just for employees, and you could bring one guest. That happened for lots of big movies. The biggest one I remember is when The Two Towers came out, and so many people showed up for the sneak preview. It's like everybody had 3 guests that were there at the time. And because it was 2002, I want to say, and it was Kentucky, like half people were smoking in the theater. That normally never would have been allowed, but it was very laid back because it was employees and friends. And the thing I remember most about that, being irritated at the time, but now I think it's kind of cool, is all the smoke would go up in front of the projector light, and it made these squiggly formations on the picture, which was really kind of cool and a unique thing that you probably won't ever see again. But at the time, I was annoyed with it. And, of course, you shouldn't smoke inside. But that was an interesting memory of the time. And the fact that we had a lot of those sneak previews, and now they just made it part of the opening of a film, which is good, because if you really want to go see it at midnight, that's fun. But I do miss it being kind of exclusive to what we were doing. Something else that I do remember as well is we had on the weekends, because enough money came in, we had a police officer who would sit there and make sure nothing got stolen or whatever, and he'd follow the manager back to the bank at the end of the night. And that was a very boring job for him, apparently. He didn't have much to do. And so one night, we were always talking to him about this and that. He decided he wanted us to know what pepper spray was like. And so we went out in front of the theater, which had all these kind of cobblestone looking things, and he put something down and he sprayed it with pepper spray. And we were downwind of it, like 20 feet, and we still almost died, like coughing and hacking and burning and whatever else. And that was because it was a slow night, so we decided to pepper spray ourselves. We also had a guy come in and sell us a bunch of filet mignon. He'd been around, and this is his story. Nowadays, I might doubt it, but came by and said, "Look, I've sold all this meat. I've only got this meat left. I'm trying to get rid of it. Does anybody want to buy it?" And I remember I bought some filet mignon from this guy. It was frozen, and we cooked it later on. That might still be the only time I've had filet mignon in my entire life. Same thing. People were always coming by. It was very strange. A guy came by trying to sell us carpet cleaner. I remember he sprayed a section of our carpet, and he cleaned it. And it made it a different color, but I'm not sure it was cleaner. I think it just stained it, and the manager was super mad at us for letting him do that. The things that happened in the middle of the night in a small town in Kentucky. Also, and this is hopefully something that doesn't happen anymore, but pinching pennies was a thing, and I'm sure that's probably actually gotten worse. We would pop the popcorn, right, in the big kettle thing. And then we put it in the case, and you dip it out of the case, all that stuff. At the end of the night, though, if we had lots of extra popcorn, excuse me, we would bag it up in these massive man-sized bags. and put it in the basement, and it would sit there overnight. And then in the morning, we would put it back in the case and mix in some warm popcorn and stir it up. And that's what we were supposed to do. Now, the cheap theater across town was even worse. What they would do is they would just put like saran wrap over the case that had the popcorn and then peel it off in the morning. So we weren't the only ones doing that. There was a whole thing where we could eat as much popcorn as we want and drink as much soda as we want, but we had to bring our own containers because the inventory was done by popcorn bucket and by soda cup. And so as long as you brought your own container, you could eat and drink till you were silly. And I remember for a couple of years after that, never wanting popcorn again, because you'd go right after school and you'd be super hungry, and that's the only thing you had to eat, and so you would just munch popcorn. Oh yeah, even now it. And the same place in the basement where we kept this popcorn, I remember one time we had a mop. Somebody mopped, and then they put the mop away wet and left it for forever. I remember it got infested with centipedes, and we would knock the centipedes out and try and stomp them and stuff. And and that was right next to the popcorn. I know this is probably not super pleasant. Anyway, this was 20 something years ago, so I'm sure it doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. Let's see. What are the other really fun experiences that we had at the movie theater? Well, okay. I just wanted this to be a short video, but so I'll end with the most famous story from my time as a movie theater employee. So there's the marquee, right? The sign that has the movies, right? Well, I guess I should mention this. Back before the internet, one of our jobs was to record the show times on the answering machine phone. So what we would do is we'd read off into a recording. We would read off the name of the movie and what times it was playing. So it'd be like, Ghosts of Mars playing at 1 p.m., 3 p.m., and 6:45. And you'd do like a fake radio voice. And then you had to say that the prices. And if I remember correctly, I know that either the matinee or the evening price was $3.25. And I can't remember if that was the expensive one or the cheap one. But we had to talk about matinee and when the matinees were. And this all went into a recording. So if you wanted to know what movies were playing at what time, you either checked the newspaper or you could call in and listen to the recording. And I forgot you even had to do that until I was thinking about this video. Anyway, back to the marquee. So the marquee has, out by the highway, it's this big sign. And we would change the lettering on it to say what movies were playing. And this was my job for at least a section at a time. And the only way to get up there was to prop a ladder against it. And there was a little tiny walkway. It couldn't have been more than that. Maybe it was a little bigger. And you would walk on that walkway, holding on, switching out the letters. We'd done this many times. But I remember this time, the kid who was helping me had a cell phone. I don't think I had a cell phone at that point, but he did. I don't remember the guy's name, but he had a big old Roman nose. Anyway, so we get the ladder. We lean it against the thing. He's holding the ladder while I go up with a big armful of letters. And right when I get to the top and I'm about to step off, he gets a phone call on his cell phone. And he answers it and lets go of the ladder. And the ladder comes out from under me. And that little walkway, which was very, very rusty, I try to grab that little walkway and I can't. And it scrapes down my arms. And I remember I hit my chin on it. And then I fell must have been 15 feet off the sign. And at the bottom of that, for some reason, they've been breaking up the asphalt. So the asphalt was in chunks. And I hit the asphalt. And I remember that's the only time I had the wind knocked out of me. I didn't know what that was. And so I'm sitting up gasping. And this guy looks so shocked. And he runs away. And I was like, what in the world? So anyway, once I get my breath back, I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to be okay. And I look down and I'm bleeding from my chin and my arms all over the place. And you wear like a white shirt with like a burgundy vest and black pants back then when we worked there. So I bled all over my vest and my white shirt. And I remember going back in the movie theater and going up to the front desk where they sold tickets. And that's when it kind of hit me what had happened. And I remember just sitting, leaning myself up against the ticket booth. And the girl who was doing tickets, she came around and she like picked me up and took me over somewhere less public. And they got me cleaned up. And what had happened to the guy with the big Roman nose who answered his cell phone, he had run to get his car. and he was going to take me to the emergency room. So when he came back, there was just blood on the ground and nobody there. So he was still freaked out. And I eventually went to the hospital and just had bruising and stuff. But my mom was convinced we were going to sue the sue the movie theater, which of course we never did. And but I did get time off, like whenever I wanted it. After that, I'd go. Oh, I'm just feeling a little sore today. I think I should go home. Okay, yeah. Anyway, it was. I always loved to think, because this sign was out by the highway, that there was people driving by, glancing over to see what movies were playing. And they saw high school me fling himself off the sign. I hope that somebody out there saw that and remembers it. Anyway, just a trip down memory lane to something that doesn't exist anymore, at least in that form. And at some point, maybe won't exist at all. Who knows? But I had a blast, and I'll always be grateful that I got a chance to work at a movie theater.